Does he actually have a wide enough scope of knowledge in terms of the broader system? Because remember, this gentleman's question was, I have the big questions of life. He didn't spell these out, but why are we here? Where did we come from? How did the universe come into being? Where is the universe going? What is the big meaning and purpose of my life? And these sorts of very large questions. The only person really, or the only being really, that is fully equipped to answer those questions is an all-knowing being. Only a being who sees every moving part of the system comprehensively can, for sure, without any doubt, without any error, without any mistake, a being who knows all of the stuff inside every being. He knows all the epistemological elements of reality, right? He knows the minds and karmas and causal interrelationships of all things, and then also knows all physical objects and the causal interrelationships between physical objects. Only a being who knows all that could comprehensively, definitively, without any possibility of error or mistake, answer these questions. Now, obviously, a speculative philosopher, as he sort of imagines Buddha to be, or a ancient psychologist, as many secular Buddhists today sort of reframe the Buddha, couldn't possibly answer those questions definitively. They could simply offer kind of like a cultural answer or a historical answer or a sort of philosophical speculative answer. So what does the Buddha claim about his own knowledge? Okay, here's the Sutta 4.24. I want to point out we are again in the Pali canon. We're in the Nikayas, okay, the Book of Fours. What does the Buddha say about his own knowledge? Bhikkhus, which means monks, in this world with its devas, which are the gods, maras, which are demons, brahmas, which are the highest of gods, and amongst the ascetics, which are the great meditators, amongst the brahmins, which are like the great philosophers and scholars. Once again, it's devas and humans. Whatever is seen, heard, sensed, cognized, reached, sought after, examined by the mind, that I know. In other words, all of the epistemological stuff, known, seen, heard, sensed, cognized, reached, sought after, examined by the mind, the contents of the internal life and experience of every single being, from the highest gods to the lowest demons, that I know, knows for himself. Not only this, in this world, with its devas and so forth, he's again saying he knows it, but he's not subservient to it. So he's not bound by the system that he is observing. So he has knowledge of the whole system and the whole interaction of all beings, but he's not bound or stuck in the same way that everyone else is. Furthermore, he says, having seen what can be seen, the Buddha does not misconceive the seen, nor does he misconceive the unseen. Does not misconceive what can be seen. So things that aren't yet seen but could be seen. He doesn't misconceive these because he's already seen what can be seen. Does not misconceive the one who sees. So the beings who are doing the seeing, he also doesn't misconceive. Having heard directly what can be heard, he does not misconceive the heard, nor the unheard, nor what can be or could be potentially heard, nor those who do the hearing. So all objects that could become objects of experience, whether they are seen, or they are heard, or they are sensed, or they are cognized with the mind, the Buddha does not misconceive the objects of those, those objects that have not yet been cognized or known or seen or smelled or touched and so forth by sentient beings, or that could be cognized, because he's already seen all of those himself. Nor does he misunderstand, misconceive those who do all of that. In other words, the Buddha is omniscient. Not only this, what does the Buddha claim for himself? Thus, bhikkhus, my monks, whatever being ever stable among things seen, heard, sensed, cognized, the Tathagata is a stable one. So he says, in knowing all things, I am stable. This is the stable condition of my mind. And I say, there is no stable one more excellent or sublime than that stable one. In other words, there are no beings in existence who have greater knowledge and stability in that knowledge than myself. So this is just a stunning, stunning statement. So how does the Buddha know all of these things? He knows because he's seen all objects that have been seen by others. And he's seen all objects that have not been seen by others. He has known all things that others know, and he has known all things that others do not know. For himself, directly. So, once again, Pali canon, not Mahayana canon. When we go to the Mahayana canon, what does it say here? So this is TOH 1-6. You can look this up for yourself. Chapter 11. There is a teacher, a matchless man, born into the Shakya family. The Shakyan family is the Buddha's family. He possesses understanding, the translating buddhi here, of all dharmas. Dharmas just means all things that exist. Since this person who is born into the Shakya family, he's referring to himself, knows all things, therefore he's called Buddha. So beings who know everything are called awake. They're called Buddhas. Buddhas see the past. Likewise, they see the future. Likewise, they also see the present. So the Buddha doesn't only see what is occurring now, the Buddha sees all past things, all present things, and all future things. What does he say? The omniscient one knows everything that may be recognized, knows everything and sees everything. And this is why he's called awake. Those who can't know and see everything are asleep, right? A sleeping person doesn't see the rest of the world. The Buddha sees the rest of the world, which is why he's called Buddha, awake. Not only this, he's not just omniscient. He has recognized what is to be recognized, which here I believe is referring to the Four Noble Truths. He's meditated upon what is to be meditated upon and abandoned what is to be abandoned. Therefore, he is called Buddha. So Buddhas aren't simply omniscient. They have realized the most critical point, right, which is the Four Noble Truths and how to get out of this process of suffering, and ultimately also how to attain enlightenment. That's the key recognition, the key teaching, as we discussed in the Maitreya video yesterday. He has meditated on what needs to be meditated upon. Here, what he's referring to is cultivating all good qualities. If there is a good quality to be cultivated, if it can be cultivated, the Buddha has already perfected that quality and has abandoned what is to be abandoned. If there are any negative qualities that a being can have, whatever those negative qualities are, a Buddha has already fully abandoned those negative qualities. So a Buddha is perfectly good, perfectly omniscient, and has the greatest power of any being in reality. Now, at least from a Buddhist perspective, this is a being you can trust, right? If a being like this says, hey, here's my advice on what you should do. Here's what the meaning of life is. This is a trustworthy person, if all of this is true. Furthermore, This is TOH 127. Again, you can look this up on 84,000. This is a Mahayana Sutra. Here he is talking to a young man. I'm not going to try to pronounce the Sanskrit. And he says, "Young man, ask whatever question you may wish of the Tathagata." Tathagata is the Buddha. The Bhagavan is also the Buddha. These are just titles. "And I shall gratify you with answers to each and every question you have asked." And he says to the young man, "Young man, I am omniscient. I am all-seeing. I have attained preeminence because of my strengths and fearlessness concerning all dharmas." Dharmas here meaning everything that exists. "I possess the unobscured wisdom of liberation." Young man, there is nothing in the endless, infinite worlds that the Tathagata does not know, has not seen, has not heard, has not understood, has not directly perceived, and about which he has not become completely enlightened. Now, how could you say it any more definitively than this? There is nothing in the endless infinite worlds that the Tathagata, the Buddha, does not know, has not seen, has not heard, has not understood, has not directly perceived, not speculated, not guessed, and about which he has not become completely enlightened. In other words, not only does he see and know all of these things, but he understands them. He understands and has wisdom about all of the most relevant and important aspects of these things. That's what this is claiming. Furthermore, if we go to TOH 95, this is the Play in Full Sutra again, right? We're now on chapter 26, so we've come quite a long way. Under the 10 powers, what is it? The 10 powers of the Buddha. He says, from the power of knowledge stemming from his divine eye. The divine eye is one of the ways that they talk about the omniscient mind of the Buddha, the clairvoyant powers of the Buddha, that sees clearly all forms without exception. Therefore, he is one with the power of knowledge stemming from his divine eye that clearly sees all forms without exception. So the Buddha sees all physical things. And if you look at the other powers, he knows all previous situations. He knows all contemplations, liberations, concentrations, absorptions, all ways of stopping negative emotions. He has this huge knowledge about methods to help other sentient beings. He knows every path that leads to every destination. He knows all the inclinations of all infinite beings. He knows how beings enter into different types of rebirth. He knows the capacities of each sentient being and how much diligence they have in applying the instructions. He knows the causes and results of all actions of all sentient beings that have occurred in the past, are occurring in the present, and to the degree that they can be known, because karma has a causal element to it, things that are occurring in the future. So the Buddha, in brief, knows all mental things, all physical things, and all things which in Buddhism we would call non-associated compositional factors, a number of things that are neither mental nor physical, or have elements of both. The Buddha knows all things. Okay? Can't say it any more clearly than this, I hope. Okay. So, yeah, this is not a person who's just guessing. He's not just guessing, right? So, another reason that you might find the Buddha trustworthy, if you have a bit more of a, let's say a supernatural leaning, that you think that this world is not all there is, that there's at least one higher realm, there's at least one heavenly realm, there's at least one great God. If we go back to the Pali canon, you can read this article. This is on Access to Insight. It's one of the free, widely available resources that teaches Theravada Buddhism. And there's this wonderful article written by Susan Jutla, and it's an article called Teacher of the Devas. Remember, Devas means gods. And Brahmas are the highest of gods. And among the Brahmas, there's one highest Brahma. The Buddha, throughout the course of his career, according to the Theravada canon, okay, again, not the Mahayana, the Mahayana canon says the same thing, but according to the Pali canon, the Buddha taught deities. He taught numerous deities throughout the course of his career. He taught Devas and Brahmas. Devas and Brahmas also, at various points in his past lives and at various points in his career, also did things to benefit the Buddha. And he brought benefit in terms of liberating humans and Devas and Brahmas. So even in the Pali canon, where it's supposed to be like totally secular and he's just like a psychologist and some guy who figured out some wisdom for us human beings, there are all of these gods appearing constantly to get teachings from the Buddha. Furthermore, if we flip over here to the Play in Full Sutra again, where it's describing the Buddha's life, there was one occasion where the Buddha was taking a little rest, and he says, "Monks, last night, as I rested here, comfortable and free from afflictions, and dwelling evenly with one pointed concentration, a group of gods arrived before me. With great miraculous powers and brilliant colors, they were pristine, blazing with magnificence, illuminating Jeta's Grove." And Jeta's Grove is the monastery that Anthapindika, the Buddha's student where he knew his private name, Jeta's Grove is the monastery that Anthapindika had built for the Buddha. Illuminating Jeta's Grove with their splendor, they joyfully approached me. There were millions of gods, including all of these who are mentioned here. No need to mention them all. They prostrated at my feet, circumambulated me, and gathered here before me. They joined their palms in respect and offered me this request. Remember, common theme in the Buddha's life is that to give teachings, Buddhas have to be requested. The gods said to the Buddha, "To benefit all the worlds, this vast sutra, this great discourse was taught by all the victorious ones of times past. Today as well, O sage, since you have dispelled attachment, consider the assembly of bodhisattvas, defeat opponents, and tame all demons. By teaching us this supreme great vehicle, thus, able one, please grant us your lucid explanations." The assembly of gods thus offered their request, and with my silence I indicated my consent. This brought them joy and satisfaction, and with delight they scattered flower petals. Thus listen here, monks, to this vast sutra, taught in times past by all the thus gone ones. Thus gone is Tathagata. By all the thus gone ones, for the welfare of all the worlds. Listen one and all to this great discourse. And then we start getting into, let me tell you about the entire story of how it is that I became a Buddha and everything that's happened up until now. Right? And all of the gods said, "As you know very well, Buddha, all of the other Buddhas, they give this play in full teaching, this teaching about the entire way that they came into existence. And we request humbly that you also give that teaching for the benefit of the beings who are studying under you here in this life." So this is how this sutra from the Mahayana canon that I've been referencing came into existence, according to the sources themselves. So, is a being to whom even the gods turn to say, "Please give teachings." who even the highest God comes to and says, please give teachings. Is this someone you can trust to give you reliable advice? If you accept all of those things, I would say, absolutely.